Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast. This is Bruce Hutchin, host and executive producer. Each week you will hear tips, techniques, strategies, and personal stories from some of the best and funniest whitetail hunters in North America. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you do, tell a friend on social media. If not, tell me and I'll make it better. Thanks for listening, folks. This is Whitetail Rendezvous, episode number 405. Fun show coming up from Colorado today. Jim Willems is the president of Pope and Young, and he lives down in New Mexico. And his good friend, Mia Anstine, is going to be my co-host, and she's going to be doing the interview. Sit back and relax and hear about Pope and Young. President Jim Willems hunts throughout the globe with a stick and a string. And oh, by the way, Mia just got elected to the Professional Outdoor Media Association's board. So great work, Mia. Welcome to a very special episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Why is it special? Well, I have my first co-host, and the lady that's coming on is from Pagosa Springs. She's the owner of Mac Outdoors, and she's also a very prominent person in the women's movement in the outdoors. Mia Anstine, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, how are you?
I'm well, and I'm excited to have you partnering up with you, and we're going to have some fun over the next few months talking to folks that you know and I know, and, I'm looking forward to it. Who's our guest for today?
So today I've brought on Jim Willems, and he and I sit together on our local chapter of Safari Club International. It's Four Corners SCI. And he also just happens to be the president of the Pope and Young Club. And so I want to introduce you to Jim Willems.
Hey, Jim.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you, Bruce.
Hey, Jim, and you were on the show, I think, 18 months ago or a while back, and I'm just excited to have Mia on the show and have her running it because she sure as heck spent a lot more time with you than I have. So, Mia, take it away.
So Jim and I actually get to spend quite a bit of time together, but unfortunately we're in board meetings, so we don't get to sit around and chit chat about all the hunts, which is why I'm excited to have him on your show today so that I can pick his brain and share the information with your listeners, because Jim happens to be the president of the Pope and Young Club, but he's also a phenomenal hunter, and he's pretty modest about that. So I want to see what we can learn from him today.
Excellent.
So, Jim, I wanted to ask you, a while back, I had shared on my social media page, on my Mia Anstine page, I had asked people about what they have on their bucket list. And you actually commented on there, which you don't comment on my stuff very often. And I think you're probably often out in the field actually hunting and doing the outdoor thing. But you had commented that you don't have anything left on your bucket list and that you thought you had already accomplished everything on your list. So I have to ask you, because the more and more I hunt, the more and more things I want to hunt. And I just can't understand how you could actually fill your bucket list. What kind of tags have you already filled? What hunts have you already accomplished?
Well, since I was a little kid, my bucket list included, going way back, it included elephant and Marco Polo sheep. And I was able to do both of those hunts right after we sold our business in 2009 and got those off the list. And I did not bow hunt either of those animals. I hoped to bow hunt the elephant, but it didn't work out. Brown bear was always on my bucket list, and I've hunted brown bear a couple of times and taken one really good one. As you get older, I guess I'm old enough to have hunted a lot of the things I wanted to hunt. I've been to Africa 5 times. I don't know. I've hunted, I think 8 or 9 different countries, and I kind of am able to do what I want to do within reason. Of course, I'd like to hunt African lion someday, and rhino would have been cool, but those are just out of reach for my budget. So I guess I'm realistic about my bucket list. I've done the things I really wanted to do, and now I just really enjoy hunting deer and elk and bear and pronghorn, and do the local stuff where I can do more hunts in the year for not a lot of money, and that's really what I'm focused on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in your doing more local stuff, as you said, that money is an issue. I've followed you obviously since I've been on the board with you for several years, and a lot of what you do is do it yourself. And I admire that because we guide hunters, and I like to see the challenges of a do-it-yourself hunter. And a lot of your hunts that you're doing on your own, how are you finding those, and how are you coming about the hunts that are here in the United States?
Well, there you go. There's a great plug for the Pope and Young Club. I joined the club back in 1987, and since it's a national organization and they have a convention every other year, that gives you the opportunity to meet and talk to bow hunters from all over the country. And that gives you the opportunity since I've been a member for 30 years, you start gathering data and you start, finding out where people hunt. And over the years, you create a network where you either have people where you can trade hunts or just get to be good friends from different areas of the country and share experiences. You learn places where you can hunt on your own if you have the time and the inclination, and that's one of the greatest things about being a member of the Pope and Young Club and attending the biennium banquets is there's just a world of information out there, and if you want to do it, you can find somebody who will give you advice and maybe even help you get it done.
Mm-hmm. And so do you end up hunting with people you meet at the conventions and events, or they share stories and you think like, oh, I'd enjoy hunting that at that place, and then they give you the tips and you head that direction?
It's just a combination of both. If it's a over-the-counter hunt that you can do, year after year without drawing a tag, then typically, yes, I'll go hunt with somebody. For instance, I have a good friend in Alaska now, Bob Amin, that has he has two great places to hunt Sitka black-tailed deer, and he's invited me to hunt with him a couple of times. And then he's hunted whitetail on my property, him and his wife, Lisa. But then a lot of the hunts that you really want to do are really hard to draw. So you don't have the opportunity to apply with somebody else. Most of the time, you're only going to get a tag if you apply on your own. So in those instances, you use your friends to find out where to apply and where the best trophies are, and then you study and figure out what your draw odds are and try to figure out how to get a tag. And then for the most part, I hunt by myself. I hunt pronghorn in Wyoming with a group. I've been doing the blacktail hunt with Bob and a few other guys, and the Kansas whitetail hunt. I have a little over 1,100 acres of my own property in Kansas, plus some other places to hunt. So that's kind of a buddy hunt where people kind of come and go while I hunt a whole month, which is sad in itself.
So that sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, the
being able to hunt 4 weeks is,
Jim.
yeah. But yeah, being able to hunt 4 weeks in a row is just unbelievable. It makes the hunt so much fun.
Hey, Mia, let me break in here because, back in the day, I used to be real good friends with Don Plinky, who, very well known throughout the annuals of Pope and Young. And I don't know if you've ever hunted with him, Jim, up in Colorado, but he was the guy that when I got my archery tag for my ram this year, he gave me, years and years and years of information. And, I just wanted to say the relationship you build in the conservation groups, whatever you belong to, listeners, spend time and nurture them, because you never know when you're going to pull that limited tag or tag of a lifetime. And it's always nice to be able to pick up the phone, as I did with Marv, and say, hey, here's what I got. Here's where I'm going. And he told me 3 places to go, and every single one of them had sheep. I just didn't close the deal, and that's on me. But I just wanted to echo that for what Jim said about meeting people and developing long-term relationships.
Yeah, and I want to comment on that as well. Marv is a bow hunting legend in Colorado and across the country as far as that goes. And I never have hunted with Marv, but I've certainly spent time with him at banquets and some of the traditional shoots and whatnot. And he's just one of the great icons of bow hunting.
Agreed.
Definitely. And talking about conservation, Bruce, I mean, Jim, obviously conservation is very important to you. I mean, you're a member of 2 conservation organizations that I know of. Are you a member of any other organizations, or what inspired you to start becoming partnered or be a member of the organizations?
Well, yeah, I guess looking way back, with Pope and Young Club, I wanted to be just part of that group, part of the people who strive to be the best bow hunters in the country. And then you look at things like Safari Club and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and I've always been a member of NRA, not necessarily a conservation group, but kind of the same thing. That's just one way hunters can be involved in making a difference, in creating more habitat, more opportunity, and just enriching the experience for all of us. And you start out as being just a member and maybe going to some banquets, and then when you get a little older and your kids grow up, then you have time to take part and be on the board or be on a committee and try to make a difference. And I think we all need to consider doing that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, you probably know that because we sit on a couple of organizations together. And I really try to encourage other people to join as well, because in the organizations, once you start, like you said, attending banquets and going to meetings and stuff like that, you'll see the need for your voice, and you need to express the concerns of hunting and of caring for wildlife. And in Pope and Young, what kind of outreach are you doing there? Are you seeing an increase of membership? Is there a lot of growth in bow hunters and the membership climbing as well?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot of increase in any case. Hunting in general has been kind of stagnant. Bow hunting had a huge increase over the years, and now it's to the point where it's kind of hard to quantify just how we're doing. But I think we're staying steady. The membership within the Pope and Young Club is growing. It's never growing as fast as we'd like, and one of our biggest problems is, as bow hunters, we're kind of a solitary sort, and we tend to not belong, other than going to a few functions, we're not really joiners. So it's hard to get people to understand the reason why a strong national bow hunting organization is important, and why every serious bow hunter should support it.
Yeah. And what do you think are some reasons you could tell people about why it is important to support it?
Well, we're under attack constantly, from all angles, from the anti-hunters, from non-hunters, from hikers and campers, and everybody wants a piece of the outdoors, including us. And the more people that want more stuff, more opportunity, the easier it is for us to lose opportunity. And as bow hunters, we did a fantastic job of getting game departments to create bow-only seasons, and got the seasons lengthened and in the best times of the year, because it's harder. And we were so successful, we kind of got complacent. We kind of forgot we could lose that. And now we have the rifle hunters. They want better seasons, and muzzleloader hunters want better seasons, and of course the crossbow hunters are trying to get into our seasons and being very successful. So every time you turn around, even hunters are trying to take away what bow hunters have. So it's extremely important for bow hunters to have a national voice, and the best way to have a voice is to have numbers and the finances to fight the fights that need fought.
Yeah. And is Pope and Young doing that at a national level or a state level, or both?
Well, both. Almost everything starts at the local and state level. So the Pope and Young Club tries to support the state organizations and encourage and help out there. But then there's also the national issues, anything that's to for instance, one thing we've been working on for quite a while that I don't know, it might have got passed for all I know, but for a while we were working on the fact that you couldn't take a bow across national park property.
Right.
They made it legal to where if you had a concealed carry permit, you could take a gun across. But there's places where you can hunt that you have to cross national park to get there, and legally we couldn't bow hunt it because you couldn't take a bow across. So
Right. You weren't even allowed to
just
have it in the trunk of your car.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So that's the things you look at on the national level, and of course, public access is always an issue, and the more people involved, the more likely we are to keep beating that back to where hopefully things stay the same and we have access to our public lands.
Right. And it is important, as you said, to keep at it and not become complacent, because I know even in Colorado, it's not at the legislative level, but the commission heard address about there was an archery hunter that was shot by a muzzleload hunter a couple years ago, and the family went to the commission and was wanting laws changed, and that wasn't necessarily going to be beneficial for archery. I mean, it was directed toward preserving archery and not having muzzleload at the same time, but in effect what they were kind of requesting was shortening archery so that muzzleload could be by itself, so there wouldn't be incident. And that's something that, as you said, it's a continual, I don't know if that's even a fight or a debate, but we have to share that time in the outdoors. And that was something, when I heard about that, it kind of hit home, because I lost a brother to something completely different, but I wasn't asking for vehicles to be banned because, he died. I simply asked, people follow the laws, which that muzzleload hunter wasn't following the laws. And unfortunately, there was a tragedy because of it. But it's something that I think the archery hunters, as well as muzzleload hunters, need to step back and remind each other to be safe out there. But also, we've got to share the outdoors, or, as you were saying, we lose a piece of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of people don't understand that it takes a lot of work just to maintain what you have, let alone try to get something new and something better. And for the most part, we are just trying to maintain what we have, and it's constant battle. And I don't blame the people for trying to encroach and take something that we have. But on the same note, we're going to fight to keep it. We've fought hard to get there in the first place, and hopefully we're not going to just stand back and lose what we have.
Yeah. What do you think of in Colorado? There's been a couple of times it's been mentioned of increasing an earlier archery bear season into August. What do you think of that? Is that something that Pope and Young Club would like to see happen, or have you guys even heard of it?
Well, yeah, I've heard of it because I only live 20 miles from the border, and I've hunted bears in Colorado the last 2 years with my bow, so I keep track of what's happening in Colorado. The Pope and Young Club probably hasn't been involved with it because we haven't been asked to, except for, we do have a lot of hardcore members in Colorado who are involved that theoretically represent the club, but it's not an issue that we've taken on. But personally, I think it's a great idea. More opportunity, more time in the field, especially with bears, and especially in our part of the state, there are a lot of bears, and our season structure doesn't really allow us to manage the population properly. When they took away the spring hunt and took away hunting with hounds, we can kill a lot of bears, we just can't kill enough. And I can hear it now. Who wants to kill a bear? Who wants to kill a bear? Well, you have to manage the resource. We share the planet with these animals, and you can't just take us out of the environment. We're there. We have to do something to either positively impact the resource or negatively. And it's been proven time and again the sport hunting positively impacts just about every species, and maintaining a proper population of bears in any given area is extremely important to all wildlife and humans and pets and livestock and everything.
All of it, yeah, the whole big picture of it. And like you said, in our area, the bears are pretty prolific, and they're just growing and growing. And I've had people say, well, that people aren't very good hunters because they're not killing enough bears. But in your opinion, I mean, you're hunting with a longbow, am I correct?
I hunt with a recurve bow.
You hunt with a recurve? Okay, so you're hunting with a recurve, and you probably harvest more bears than I do with a rifle. And I mean, is it more time in the field or opportunity, or how are you coming to fill your tags, and what would make a bear hunter more successful?
Well, with me personally, it's just experience. The more you hunt, the better you get at it. And somewhere along the line, I kind of figured out what the bears do and where they go and how to hunt them. And some years are better than others. I hunt acorns, and if there's a ton of acorns, the bears are all spread out. And I don't hunt little bears, so there's years where I just can't find one big enough that I want to hunt. And then there's other years where the acorns are limited and the bears are kind of concentrated, and you can find a big one and go out and hunt it. So that's just part of experience. And another part is tenacity. You decide you're going to go, you want to go after something and you want to be successful, and you just keep at it until you are. And I really enjoy hunting bears. Sadly, I've got to the point where I don't really kill bears very often, because what am I going to do with another rug? I'm out there trying to find something really big, and I already have several big bears, but I'd like to find something, even bigger yet. And when you do that, you realize that you're not going to shoot a bear. And before you even have to ask, I think fall bears, the meat of the fall bear tastes great. And
yes, it does.
A big bear can be kind of tough, but the meat's great. And if you grind it into hamburger and sausage, yes, I do eat them. And I think they're as good as most other game.
Yeah, I agree. And we actually, with our bears, I do a lot of burger. I also do roasts and summer sausage. And then, like you were saying, some of the more tough bears, we actually grind that into burger, and I make that with vegetables and such for our dogs, so that then it saves us a grocery bill for them as well. So we try to utilize a lot of the bear. And then I actually have a friend down near Albuquerque who's a Native American, and she likes what she calls the bear grease, or the fat from the bear. She makes salves and different healing ointments with the bear grease, which is really cool, I think, to be able to give that to her. So I've had people say, why would you kill a bear? Well, there's a lot of uses, like you're saying. You can not just eat it, but use other parts of it as well. Have you found anybody curious about the meat?
Yeah, everybody around me knows that I hunt, and they all know that I hunt a lot of different things. And people get to the point where they're not bashful to ask to try something. And so if I get something different, there's a lot of demand for it.
Yeah.
and bear's another example. The last one I shot, a guy wanted a whole hind quarter to make jerky out of. And
oh, nice.
Give it to him. So, I hunt enough where, my wife and I never buy meat. We just eat whatever I can kill or catch, and we eat wild game and fish and wild turkey and pheasant and quail, and we eat well. So, I always have plenty of meat around.
And you're eating healthy, and it's organic meat, and you seem like you're in very great fitness shape. Do you also train or exercise, or are you just out in the field all the time and you stay in shape?
Well, no, I have to work out. I'm getting older, and it's not so easy anymore. And there's the fact that since I'm the president of the Pope and Young Club, I spend way too much time at a desk writing letters and working on stuff. And so I get up every morning at 6, and I go work out for about an hour and a half. Usually about a 4-mile run, and then lift some weights and a lot of stretching, and 5 days a week if I'm home. And but when I'm not home, I'm usually out in the woods anyhow. So that's better exercise on its own. So
right, that's kind of what I found too. Is like if you can
hard.
Get out there, you definitely get in shape. But like you're saying, if you can't get out there, I feel like I'm aging as well, and I definitely have to exercise more, and stretching has become a big part of my day as well. It's to keep your muscles loosened up for when you're out in the field.
Yes, absolutely. That's important and good for you.
Yeah, and you said your wife enjoys the meat as well. Does she hunt at all, or does she tag along, or does she stay home and hold down the fort?
She tried hunting a couple of times, and one of the first, and she took up bow and arrow right after we got married, and she tried hunting, and one of her funnest stories is we were hunting pronghorn in eastern New Mexico, and we planned on hunting over water and just let the antelope come to us, but of course it rained, and we only had a weekend to hunt, and we found one lone buck bedded down on a little ridge where we thought we might be able to sneak up on him. And we did about a mile hike and got up there, and she peeked up over the hill, and he's laying down at 30 yards, and the antelope stands up, and the antelope looks at her, and then it runs off. And she didn't even think about shooting. She was just so excited to be so close, and she come to realize that nothing in her mind says shoot, or she just had no desire to shoot it. She loved the experience of getting out and hunting, but ultimately realized that she didn't want to kill anything, and that's fine. Most of my hunts are solo, one-on-one, or with one other person, and she typically doesn't go because I do a lot of backpacking and tent camping and move around a lot. It's just not fun for somebody not hunting. Fortunately, our Kansas property, we have a little house there near the property, and she goes along with me there, which is great because otherwise I couldn't stay and hunt for 4 weeks. And she does projects in the house, and she does her quilting and knitting and sewing and fixing up the house. And last fall while I was hunting, she painted the entire inside, and so I take her along when I can, just because I want to get away as much as I can, and I want her to be with me as much as possible, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when you're out hunting, you said how she got, within 30 yards of that buck. Is that part of why you like to archery hunt?
Oh, yeah.
Because you get close to the animals, and I mean, what's the main reason you archery hunt?
Well, the main reason is it increases your time in the field, and the typical rifle hunter, if he's a good hunter, it's a 1 or 2 day hunt and you're done. And with bow hunting, that seldom ever happens. I don't very often hunt the whole season and not kill anything, but sometimes I do. So it increases the amount of time that you get to hunt. But then also it's the closeness and the intimacy. Especially with things like bears. I just love being close to bears and being able to watch them feeding and grunting and fighting each other, and try to do that without them realizing I'm around, and it's just exciting and fun.
Yeah, bears are a ton of fun to watch. I've actually watched them splashing. They look like kids playing in a pond, and it's really neat to just sit there and watch them, as you're saying, without even knocking an arrow or anything like that. But that's, to me, also is part of the joy of not just archery hunting, but hunting in general, because I don't know if you know, I mean, I'm kind of any method of take because I like to be out in the field. So if I can get more days, I'll get another tag so I can go out, whether it's handgun or rifle or whatever. But getting out there is the important part. And I think that's something a lot of non-hunters don't understand, is that we're actually out there partly for the time of field. It's not all about taking the shot. Have you kind of found that as well?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I for instance, last year I went on 8 hunts, and I was fairly fortunate. I ended up killing 5 trophy animals, all made the record book out of the 8 hunts. But the other hunts, I was looking for something bigger than I'd already taken before, and that's kind of hard to do sometimes. You spend a lot of time looking and hunting and passing stuff up, but you have to understand that if you want to kill something big, you have to do that, and that's just part of the enjoyment. It's being able to be selective, and I'm fortunate that I have so much time to do it, and in a position where I can do it. And where most people, they need to get out, and in their 1 week hunt, they want to try to get something, and I don't have that pressure, and it certainly makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. And I have to tell you a story because my daughter Leah, I mean, she's on the SCI board as well, and she has fascinated me, and I obviously taught her how to hunt. She spent a ton of time with me in the field, but I've been fascinated with her because when I first started hunting, it was to fill the freezer, and you took your week off of work, like you're saying, and so it was like, I got to do this before the season's done and before I have to go back to work. And so, if I found a legal bull, I would shoot the bull and fill the freezer, and I was done. But with her, there's 3 of us in the family hunting. And so, like you're saying, we always have a freezer full of meat. Well, what I've noticed that I'm learning from her now, it's kind of a reversal of roles, but she already knows how to take the time and be more selective because there is already meat in the freezer. So she's taking time, and she actually will end a season with a tag that's not filled because she wants a mature animal. And that just fascinates me with somebody who's a teenager, that they can have that experience already, and not have to worry about time or pressure of, getting the meat in the freezer. So it's kind of cool to see that at her age.
That is incredible, because most young hunters, they just want to kill stuff. They want to experience the finishing the hunt, and they want to put a lot of things under their belt. So they just want the experience. But the fact that she's grown past that that's amazing.
Yeah, and like I said, I step back and I'm amazed by her, because I sometimes, don't have that restraint. I'm like, okay, well, if I can fill this tag today, then I can go get this done tomorrow, go to work. And even though I make my own schedule, sometimes I feel that way. And she'll remind me, like, wait, there's that other one we saw, we can wait longer. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, she's a great guide already. And in the Pope and Young, do you have a lot of young members? Like, she's a member, but are you seeing any young people coming in, or is there a way that we can try to encourage these younger kids to get involved?
Yeah, we've worked pretty diligently at that over the last few years, and we have 2 or 3 opportunities that have increased our youth membership by a lot. And our youth membership only costs $10, and any youth can join, whether they've killed an animal with a bow or even whether they seriously bow hunt. But with that, since it's only $10, you don't get the magazine in the mail. You get the online version of the magazine, which is fine with most kids. But we've partnered up with a few groups to increase our outreach to the youth. And one of them that's going like gangbusters is Scholastic 3D Archery. It's the program that has kind of taken the NASP kids, the National Archery in Schools program, and taken the next step to where they're shooting 3D targets with hunting weight bows instead of the smaller bows that are restricted because of the youth age. So this organization is kind of taking the next step to the teenage high school level, and it's a combination of competitive 3D archery, and also there's a hunting and fair chase and training component involved with it as well. And the Pope and Young Club helped write some of the educational materials for the hunting component. So we've partnered up with that group, and they've signed up a lot of youth as our members, and even the youth that haven't signed up, at least they know what the Pope and Young Club is when they get done with the curriculum.
And did that just come out in this spring, or have you had it for a while?
It's about 2 years now.
Okay.
Actually, we got on board with them in the spring of 2015, and gave them a fairly large grant out of our conservation fund to help get them going down the road. They had a great curriculum, had a great executive director, but just didn't quite have the funds to put on a couple of additional employees and go state to state. And right now it's in over 40 states, I think. And
that's awesome.
55,000 participants, something like that. And they've had youth that have gone from their program. They've got college scholarships in archery programs, and it's been a fabulous project for us. And then there's a couple other more
great project.
Yeah. There's a couple other more regional youth type camp training organizations. The Raised Hunting television program, the Holders, that have done that for a while. They have camps where they bring in kids, and they actually give the kids a free membership to Pope and Young as part of the camp experience, which we help them with that. The Kicking Bear Foundation is another one that does it with youth, and we've supported them considerably. So yeah, there's a lot going on with the youth that the problem is they're going to go off to college and they're going to forget about Pope and Young for a while, and they're not going to have the money to rejoin at some point. And, they're going to go on with life. But, 10 or 15 years down the road, when they get back into hunting and get back to where they have some time and some funds, then hopefully they'll they'll embrace the club again. And
yeah, hopefully they'll circle back, and that'll be a good foundation for them. And is there anything going on in colleges for archery, or is that something where the ball kind of ends right there and then they're on their own?
Well, yeah, because the college archery is all competitive target archery, and there's really no hunting component involved. So the Pope and Young Club hasn't been involved with that. We haven't found a way to do that, and maybe somebody will figure that out for us at some point. But you can only do so much. So
right.
At the college level, it's really intense training for archery competition, and it doesn't leave much time for anything else. It's just like any other collegiate sport. It's about all consuming.
Right. Well, I think what you've got going with the high school and the younger ages is just outstanding. And if there's a school that doesn't have that already, how would they get involved or find information to start that at their school?
Well, the S3DA is Scholastic 3D Archery. It actually is S3DA is the official name because it turns out they couldn't use the word scholastic. There's some legal issues there. So get online and look up S3DA and do a search for state instructors and all of that. And, if you can't find what you're looking for, just give them a call. And maybe there's somebody in your area that's interested in setting up a program. And they have instructors all over the place. And, they're kind of piggybacking with the NASP instructors. If they're inclined to do NASP, then they'll also do the older kids as well. So it's worked out really well.
And it's an ideal transition from the NASP. I think it's a great way to keep some of the kids from going into boredom, and give them a change of pace from just target. And speaking of, with the archery in the schools, are they starting that with pretty young kids, or what age are we starting with archery in the schools?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
It probably
I do know
varies
they're
from
fairly
school
young,
to school.
but I don't know what the age, the beginning age is on that.
Yeah. And I interrupted you on part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. All kids want to shoot a bow. They just want to get out and fling arrows, and you just have to give them a way to do it that's safe and proper instruction. So it's great for them.
It is great responsibility and discipline as well as fun for them that I found. How old were you when you started shooting a bow?
Well, started shooting a bow. I was a typical 7 or 8 year old kid when I got the little fiberglass bow for my birthday or Christmas or whatever. But I kind of gave up on it when I got old enough to shoot a gun. But I grew up in Kansas, and you couldn't even hunt deer until you were 16. So I didn't have the opportunities that a lot of youth have today. What I had was pheasants and quail and ducks and geese and coyotes and raccoons and my dad was a machinist and a part-time gunsmith, so I was into guns when I was younger. So I went through all of that, but then when I got old enough to apply for a deer tag in Kansas, if you drew a rifle tag in 1 year, you couldn't even apply the next year. You had to go a year without. That's how limited the opportunity was. But you could get a bow tag every year. So when I turned 17, I couldn't get a rifle tag, and I wanted to hunt deer. So I went and bought a bow and became a bow hunter, and was hooked. Never looked back.
Nice. And what kind of suggestions would you give somebody who wants to get started bow hunting? Are you still there, or did I lose you? Oh
no, I'm still there. Probably the best thing to do is go to one of the local pro shops. That's where most of the bow hunters are, and that's where the experience is with the equipment. And even before you buy a bow, you might want to find out one of the local archery clubs and go to the range on a night when there's a shoot, or a weekend when there's a shoot, and just kind of talk to people about equipment, because that's probably the first step, is to figure out what equipment to use and how to use it properly and how to set it up for hunting. And it's all about networking with the people that are already doing it. And you have the local clubs and you have the pro shops, and from there, then you have to find a place to hunt. If you live in the western states, you have public land, so finding a place to hunt isn't hard, but sometimes getting a license is. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, step by step. And since you're shooting a recurve, what would you tell somebody a recurve versus a compound? Is it just personal preference, or where would somebody want to start out?
Well, it's personal preference for me, and I think a lot of it depends on age, because the younger kids, they'd have trouble shooting a heavy enough recurve or longbow to actually hunt with, whereas a 35-pound compound bow is capable of killing. You could even kill an elk with it. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's certainly good enough for deer. A lot of people hunt deer and antelope with it. So for the young people, I would recommend starting out with the compound bow, just because you can have a more powerful bow with less weight. And if you're older, the traditional equipment, it isn't hard to learn how to shoot, but it's hard to learn how to shoot really consistently at live animals.
Right.
And for most people, it literally takes years of repetition to get good enough to maintain your composure and pick a spot and make an accurate shot on a live animal under a pressure situation with a traditional bow. So that's a huge commitment for somebody to do, and of course a lot of people do it. They take on that commitment and restrict their shots to 15 or 20 yards until they get good enough to do a little farther. But it depends on the individual.
Yeah. And do you just suggest a lot of practice time before you actually head out to try to shoot live animals, or do you suggest 3D tournaments, or what kind of training should they do with their bows?
All of the above. Shooting a bow, for instance, a compound bow with a release and sights, you have a reference to where it's easier to know when you're at full draw. It's easier to know when the sight pin is filled in, and when you release the arrow, you have a pretty good idea already that it's either going to be a hit or a miss, just from practicing shooting. But when it comes to live animals, and especially some of the trophy animals that really get you shook up, it's all about repetition and muscle memory and just doing the same thing over and over again. So it's a combination of practicing almost daily at in your backyard at 20 yards in a target, but then also you need to get out on the weekends and do the 3D shoots around other people, which adds another pressure component that can be similar to the wild game buck fever. Right. Being around people and having that pressure is something that you need to try to master as well.
Yeah. So what kind of hunts are you looking forward to this fall? Have you applied in several states, and what tags are you hoping to draw, or have you already drawn?
I apply. I send in about 3 applications a year. I do most of the western states, all species in New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and then select species in Nevada and Montana and Idaho. And I'm sure I'm missing something there, but and most of those hunts are really hard to draw a tag. This year I should be hunting high country mule deer up in the Gunnison Basin during the bow hunt. I don't know yet, but I had 10 points. I certainly hope I get a tag. But I'll start out with, I'm going back on the Sitka blacktail hunt on Prince of Wales Island in Alaska. And it's a very serious backpack hunt. It's real steep country, a hard hunt. You're allowed 3 tags in Alaska, but typically we restrict ourselves to 1 animal apiece because it's just so hard to get in and out of there. And I was fortunate last year. I bought 2 tags and I shot a deer on the first day and got it packed out on about the 3rd day. And since another hunter was still hunting, went back up again and shot my second deer on the 7th day. So that was kind of unusual for that hunt, but I'm going to do that. I hope so that's August 1st. I hope to draw a Wyoming antelope tag, archery season open, and then Colorado mule deer hunt is about the 24th. And I already have a really good New Mexico elk tag. I drew my first choice this year, first time in a while, so I'll be hunting the Gila for elk during the second.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I have, if I don't draw anything else, I have the Kansas hunt in November, and I also have a place in Nebraska about 100 miles from my house in Kansas where I've been hunting the last 2 years, and that's a 2-buck state that's over the counter. So what's that make? About 6 hunts?
Yeah, you'll probably end up with at least 6. I always look
I have
forward to seeing your pictures from your hunt.
yeah. I drew my third or fourth choice in New Mexico for the January deer hunt. I have a guy that trades me a landowner voucher for to hunt deer on his property, and that allows me to draw a private land only deer tag in January for the New Mexico hunt, which it's not a great hunt. Occasionally there's a really nice deer on the property, but most years it's just something to do in the afternoons in January.
Another time to get outdoors and be connected with nature, huh?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of what it's about, is getting out there, getting close to the animals. Bruce, do you have any more questions for us? Yeah, be out there and have fun.
So, Jim, over the years, you've been a lot of places, seen a lot of sunrises and sunsets, and hung around campfires. So, if you had to choose your top 3 hunts, what would they be?
Oh man, that's a hard one to answer. If it's the top 3 once in a lifetime hunts, then I'd have to think, probably brown bear, mountain goat in Colorado, and moose just about anywhere. But those are the things you hear. So, to be honest, my top 3 are elk and whitetail, and then it'd be a toss up between black bear and pronghorn, because that's something I can hunt most years, and I want to do it. I want to do those hunts every year if I can.
Let's talk a little bit about Kansas now. I don't want to know where your hunting holes are, but what county are you hunting in, and have you seen a tremendous increase in hunting pressure, or because you have 1,100 acres, not so much?
Well, I grew up in Kansas and took over the family farm when I was 18 years old, and was able to buy my first piece of property when I was 19, which is only 80 acres, but it's really good hunting. It's actually where I killed my first buck with a bow and killed my first Pope and Young deer there just the year before I bought the place. And that's in McPherson County, Kansas, right in the center of the state. I have 2 properties there that are separated by about 8 miles, and hunting pressure in that area is high. It's amazing. Some years when I kill my buck and I'm just out looking around, there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 trucks parked around every section, which is a lot as far as I'm concerned. Then I was lucky enough to be able to buy a 60 miles north of there in Lincoln County, that is kind of hard to get to. There's not a lot of roads going in and out, and very little bow hunting pressure around it at all. And there's been years where I killed my buck early and was out running around hunting coyotes and whatnot, and drive around for a half hour and not see a pickup of a bow hunter anywhere, which is amazing. But what's even more amazing is the property in McPherson County that is completely surrounded by hunters, and some hunters that kill just about everything they see. It has just as big a bucks as the place that has no hunters, and I don't have an explanation for that other than they're just smart and they can survive.
Now let's talk about high country mule deer hunting. Gunnison Basin and hunting up in there, and there's some really neat places. You get near the castles or up in that country, and in the wilderness area. How do you sneak up on those suckers? Because you get in the high country, there's no trees. There might be some string going into the basin, but how do you do that?
Well, it's especially tough with a recurve or a longbow, and my brother shoots a longbow, and he's going to be hunting with me, so it's tough. And the way you do it, and the way you be successful, is you try to find an area that allows you to get close. It's not your typical mule deer attitude where most people want to find a big buck and concentrate on that buck. I tend to have to find an area that's huntable where I can get a close shot and just hunt the biggest buck that's in that area. And it's still going to be a pretty good buck. They have some Colorado mule deer, right? I was doing great. There's some huge bucks up there. So, I hunt an area really instead of a deer.
Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what you do up in Sitka as well with the terrain up there?
No. it's different there. It's pretty much the same terrain, and it's above timberline in the August hunt. But the Sitka blacktail aren't as wary as the mule deer, so you can get away with a little more. They'll stand there and look at you at 100 yards, and until you make a move toward them, they might just stand and watch. Whereas a mule deer certainly won't do that. Mm-hmm. So they're a little more ideally suited for me and my type of hunting. And where I hunt, the terrain is really broken up. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies, and most of the time, if you find a good buck, at some point he'll get in a spot where you can make a stalk, and you just have to make the stalk and make the shot.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a lot of patience to me.
This has been so much fun, you guys. It's just, Mia, you did a great job, and we're at the time of the show that both of you are going to have an opportunity. We'll start with Jim to give some shout outs to those people or sponsors or supporters that you want to, and take a couple minutes and follow up, and we'll close the show.
Okay. The Open Young Club has 2 minutes right now for me to mention. It's in the dozens. And by doing that, they're able to advertise in our magazine and come to our convention. And this last year we had, I think, about 75 booths at our convention, which included our corporate partners and outfitters that support the club. I'll give a shout out to a couple that have been really good to me personally, and we all know who they are. But last year, Sitka Gear kind of decked me out on their new Whitetail gear. Well, it's not new, but it was new to me. Had some fabulous products that work great for the combination of cold mornings and not so cold afternoons. So Sitka Gear has done really well for me personally, and I appreciate all they do for me and the club, and also their big competitor Kuiu. Same thing. They've done me some favors, and they have some great gear, and I try to support both of them. And Sitka Gear, they donated some vests for a fundraiser for the Pope and Young Club for our trust fund. That was a huge benefit to the club, and it does the same thing in different areas. So those are our 2 big ones that I really appreciate.
Mia, you're up.
So I thank you for having me as a guest host, Bruce. I really appreciate you including me and allowing me to include Jim and pick his brain. I am happy to be a part of the show, and I also wanted to give a shout out. I have my own podcast, which is the Mac Outdoors podcast, and it's with my daughter and I. So Mac Outdoors with Mia and Leah. But basically, in my own world and what I do in the outdoors, as you said, I'm known slightly in the outdoors world, but I try to encourage everybody to get outside and hunt, fish, shoot, and basically just survive life with other people in a positive way. And I think, Jim, you definitely do that, and you encompass it in all you do, not just in Pope and Young life. Is you're out there actually doing everything that a lot of people really would like to do. And I'm glad that you were able to kind of give us a little insight into that world today. And I also have to give a shout out. I'm not a member of Sitka's pro staff or anything like that, but this year they sent me their new women's gear, and I wore that for turkey hunting. And I am so happy to have it and very proud to wear it, because that gear is outstanding. I mean, I never thought I would be that excited to have new gear. So if there's ladies listening, that Sitka women's subalpine is just really remarkable. So that's something really great gear. And then I've also got other projects this year that I'll be working on. And if anybody wants to follow them, they can follow me on social media sites just by looking up my name or on my website.
Did we lose you?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to tell you my website name?
Yes, please. Just give me the link.
It's www.miaanstine.com.
Well, me and Jim, thank you so much for being part of Whitetail Rendezvous on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America. It's just been a joy listening to you both, and it's kind of fun for me because I hear more of what the person's saying than when I'm hosting the show myself. So it's just been a great afternoon, and I thank you both for being part of the success of Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thank you, Bruce. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
On the coming up episode, we're going to visit with some friends out in Pennsylvania, Ryan and Will of Rut and River Podcasts. Yeah, they're podcasters just like me, and they get some great stories about the hunting traditions that have been passed on through the decades. We're also going to talk about mature bucks and how hard they are to track and put on the ground in Pennsylvania. It's going to be a fun show, and I think you're going to enjoy Ryan and Will from Rut and River Pursuits.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.